Bill, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you as always. Pair of starters in this afternoon's Woodward. Let's begin with Flat Out, a dominant winner of the Suburban and last. How's he coming up to this afternoon's race?
He's been doing fine. We skipped the Whitney with him. We didn't think that he was as sharp as he should be. And we opted to give him a little break right now. We'd like to take him back and run him in the Jockey Gold Cup at Belmont because he's like the, he has an affinity for the Belmont track. But it seems like the extra time has been a benefit to him, and he seems like he's sharp and ready to go.
Let's talk about that tremendous affinity for Belmont. 5 stakes victories downstate. It's not like he's run poorly here, but no stakes victories here. What is it about Belmont Park?
Well, maybe there's been more opportunities there. Maybe the competition has been more suitable to him, but it's been one of those things where he really does excel. And we train him up here and run him down there.
He dominated the Suburban, as our audience is taking a look at. What I found most interesting, because he really did basically lay over this field, but he showed more early speed this day. Was that by design?
Well, it could have been a result of him running in 2 flat mile races the times before. We'd run him, he won a flat mile stake there earlier in the spring, and then we ran him back in the Mott Mile, which he ran well, but I think maybe running in those shorter races maybe put him a little more up in the game, when we stretched him out.
How do you think that might impact him later this afternoon? We don't have Cross Traffic, who would have likely been the favorite, but he would have also given you more early speed in the race. Might we see Flat Out a little closer to the pace this afternoon?
Well, if he runs the way he did the last time, I think you could expect him to be more in the race. I think we'd like him to be there and, at least in a stalking position. So if he breaks well and he's willing to do it, we'll let him stay up in the race a little bit.
You're also going to be running Ron the Greek, and it's not like he's had a poor year, but 2013 hasn't been as good as 2012. What's going on with him?
Well, could be the situation that he's been in, I guess, running. When he won the Santa Anita Handicap last year, there was a very, very hot pace in front of him, and they backed up into him, and he ran well and got the job done, ran well in the Stephen Foster. Hasn't fired the same shot this year. He's run good races, actually. When we ran him in West Virginia, he ran real well. I thought he was, nearly going to beat Game On Dude that day. I think maybe if he had, gone the overland route and come around him, maybe we would have had a chance to beat him. We went inside and we didn't. So, that was a good race. He's run credible races, but maybe not as good as the 2 that when he won the 2 grade 1s last year.
He's now a 6-year-old. Does he still train with enthusiasm? Have you noticed any dramatic changes?
I think he trains much the same way. I don't think there's a big difference in the way he trains in the mornings. I don't think there's, he's never been a horse that would wow you in the morning, so he never did before, and he hasn't now. His works are steady, they're useful, but you don't walk away from the training track thinking, boy, look what he just did, and checking your watch and make sure it's right. So, he works just average works, and he runs well off of those type of works.
In this afternoon's Grassy Bernard Baruch, you're going to run a recent arrival to your barn, Tetra Dracum. Talk about some of your impressions since you got him.
Well, he was a new horse to us, and we had him a couple months before we ran him the first time, but he was straightforward. He's, been a horse that's worked reasonably well, and we were sure impressed with his first race. We didn't, make any big changes on him. He just, we got in with the right group, and he fired a good shot the day we ran him here earlier in the meet. So we're obviously hoping that he'll show back up the same way he did the first time.
Yeah, this is the high-priced optional claimer toward the beginning of August. How'd he come out of this race, and how's he progressing to this afternoon's Baruch?
He's worked very well. I mean, I think he looks good. I think he looks good flesh-wise, and I think his works have been similar to what they were before the allowance race. So I don't see any big changes in him, either way.
Horse with some natural, rateable, tactical speed.
Looks like it. It looks like, depending on how much speed in the race, depends on where he places himself.
Bill, earlier this year, you had a very promising turf horse by the name of Amira's Prince. And I believe since he came to this country, came to you, he went 4 for 4. But the last time I saw him was the Munoz earlier this winter and spring at Fairgrounds. What's going on with Amira's Prince?
We got him back to New York, and we were looking at maybe running him in Manhattan, and he didn't train well. He looked like he just wasn't moving the way he should, and we couldn't seem to get him right, so we turned him out. He's getting a 90-day vacation, and then we're bringing him back. So he'll probably be back for the first part of the year. I wouldn't expect him back until probably sometime at Gulfstream.
Is this a colt with some quality?
Oh, he was 4 for 4. He ran a huge race in New Orleans when we ran him in the Mervyn Muniz. It was I think it was a good field, but he's shown that he can run anywhere from 1 1/8 to 1.5 miles. So he's won at all those distances for us. So very, very nice horse, and I'll be looking forward to getting him back in the barn. It's a loss not to have a horse like him, with all these important races coming up. But he's just a 4-year-old, so hopefully he'll have another good year in front of him next year.
Wonderful. Well, it's time to talk about the Queen, Royal Delta. Let's start with the fact that she's gone to Dubai each of the last 2 years and doesn't seem to like it over there. What's that all about?
Well, the first year she was over there, we had a little bit of a traffic problem during the running of the race. We felt we got bounced around a little bit, and she got shuffled back. Really didn't have maybe a chance to run her race. This past year, we thought she trained well over the racetrack over there. She was doing very well. I make no excuses about the way she shipped or the way she saddled up and went to the post. I thought that all went perfectly, but for whatever reason, the track was not in the same condition on race night that it was what we trained on in the mornings. I mean, we had given her an easy blowout over there. She breezed in 35 and change on the bridle, went very well. On race night, when she left the gate, it just, Mike said after she went 4 or 5 strides, he said he knew he was in trouble. He said the ground was very soft. They'd either cut it up or changed the synthetic track in some fashion. In fact, I had heard that from some other jocks earlier in the evening before we ran in the World Cup, and they said the track had changed dramatically, and they said their horses, that the particular horses that they had been on hadn't handled it, and we didn't feel like she was able to carry her speed at all on that racetrack.
You brought her back from Dubai, and you ran her in the Fleur de Lis, same race she used a year ago, where she looked sensational a year ago. She runs in the Fleur de Lis, and she doesn't even look like Royal Delta. You take her off Lasix, and she returns to her old self. Coincidence or meaningful?
I think it could be a little of both, I suppose. She had won with Lasix before last year, but we just felt on this particular occasion in Kentucky, the weather was very hot and humid once again, which she had run in hot and humid weather before, but she seemed to be in a little bit of distress after the race, and we thought she showed some of the symptomatic signs that they show when the Lasix has an adverse effect on them, and we just made the choice to take her off. We didn't feel she needed it. She's not been known to be a bad bleeder or a horse that needed Lasix. We don't treat her with Lasix in the mornings when she breezes. We don't give it to her before workouts. So, and she's always worked well. So I just made the choice to take her off, and it's worked out at least the last 2 times.
It certainly has, and here's a piece of last Sunday's personal ensign. For our audience, you had to be awfully pleased with this performance.
I was I was pleased with the performance and relieved, obviously, when you take one over like her and she's, you know, 1-2 or 1-5, whatever price she might be. It was a short price. It's always a relief to get them around there, have them perform well and not disappoint anybody. She certainly didn't disappoint me, and I don't think she disappointed anybody else.
Everybody is asking me, as I'm sure they're asking you, is she going to face the boys later this year in the Classic? You're in a unique situation with her right now. She has got a sizable lead in the filly and mare category for another Eclipse. And if she wins the Beldame, will the Beldame be next, by the way?
That's our plan
Okay.
right now. All things go well up until that point, yes.
She's got a sizable lead right now, and if she wins the Beldame, it's probably an insurmountable lead. So it's almost like a freebie for the Breeders' Cup. You run against the boys, even if you get beat, she still gets the Eclipse for champion filly or mare. You beat the boys, she might be horse of the year. Is she going to run against the boys?
We haven't determined that yet. I think the same thing we did last year. We nominated her for both races. We made the choice to run in the filly division. And I would have no problem running her back in the filly division. I don't think if we were able to win another Breeders' Cup Distaff or the Classic filly race, I think it would be a feather in her cap to win 3 of those. So I don't think there's a negative no matter how we do it.
If I'm not mistaken, after last year's Breeders' Cup, Mr. Leone hinted that it was going to be 2013 where she would face the boys in the Classic. Has he changed his mind on that?
I think he's still leaving all his options open. I mean, I think he wants to. I think he enjoys seeing her running, and winning, and well, that'll just have to be a subject that we, discuss. I guess the closer we get to it. First of all, we got to get through the Beldame, and I'm sure those discussions will come up.
Is she, and obviously you've run against the boys in Dubai 2 years, is she physically and mentally capable of running against the top males?
I think she is. I'm sure she would put on a good performance. Can she beat them? Could she beat them every time? She could beat them part of the time. Can she beat them every time? I don't know the answer to that. I guess that's something we'd have to do. And I'm sure Mr. Leone is probably, curious to know how she would do against the boys as well. So, if we don't do it this year, maybe next year.
There's always great anticipation with a great race mare like Royal Delta. We saw it with Zenyatta go up against the boys in the Classic. We love to see the top fillies run against the males, so we'll hope that happens later in the year. Did she come out of the Personal Ensign well?
Oh, she
How's
looks
she doing?
great. She looks great. Yeah, she really does. She looks good. She looks like she's bounced back in very good order from it.
That's wonderful. Well, Bill, we appreciate your time very much. Thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. And we want to say thank you in a special way by giving you this $100 gift certificate to Jacob and Anthony's American Grill, 38 High Rock Avenue, right here in Saratoga. Please go lunch or dinner on us. Enjoy it very much. Good luck later today with Flat Out and Ron the Greek and Tetradrachm, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again soon. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bill Mott, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.